All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Nathan Smith, and I'm the Digital Programming Coordinator here at the Central Arkansas Library System. Thank you so much for joining me today for Make Your Website with WordPress Part 1. Hopefully, you will get a lot out of this class and have some fun and have a cool website. So all of those things are good. Before we dive in, though, let's go ahead and tackle a couple of quick preliminary things here. First of all, of course, we've always got tons of cool stuff happening here at CALS. Most of our events right now are virtual. If you are interested in figuring out what else is going on, just head to cals.org. It's super duper easy. And once you're there, I'll go ahead and fire this up for a sec. Once you're there, you can move your mouse over events and click on find an event online, and that'll show you all the stuff that's happening. You can browse through and see everything. Of course, we have a technology classes section here, so you can see what else is coming up. I am a little behind on posting all of those event pages on the website, but hopefully we'll get those up for next month in the next little while. And then you can check out what we've got going on, including my always popular Excel course that's coming up starting next week. So check that out if that's something that might be of interest to you. Excel is really handy, so I don't see why it wouldn't be. Anyway, so there's that. The other big thing that I always like to say at the beginning of class, and I definitely want you to hear this, is if you have questions, please let me know. Don't worry about whether it might seem like a silly question or, maybe maybe it's something that might seem obvious to me. That is not at all an issue. I am not in the business of judging based on that. The point of a technology class is for you to learn useful things about technology. I know that's surprising, but it's true. And so if you're learning something useful about technology, even if I'm not covering every little point in my outline, then the class is going great, and we're doing exactly what we want to do. If, on the other hand, you're, you are confused about what I'm saying, then things are not going so well, and that's a big problem. I want to make sure if I say something that's confusing to you, please ask for clarification. If I am if there's just something you're wondering about, then let me know, and we'll talk about it, and either I'll be able to answer it or we'll find out together. Either way is great as far as I'm concerned. And so I definitely want to make sure you know. If you have questions, let me know. Put it, just anytime. Speak up. How do you do that? Well, okay, so if you're joining me in Zoom and you're on a computer, what you'll want to do is head down to the bottom of your Zoom window, click on the little speech bubble that says chat underneath it, and type your question into the chat, which will probably pop up over on the right-hand side of your Zoom window. If you are joining me in Zoom, but you're on a mobile device, what you'll want to do is tap the middle of the screen, look for a More button in the corner, tap on that, and then tap Chat in the menu that pops up. And that should get you to basically the same place. If you are joining me on live stream, if you're on Facebook, just use the comments like you would on any other post on all of Facebook. Should be down below probably. And then if you are joining me on live stream on YouTube, use the live chat that's just to the right of this video, or if you're on the YouTube mobile app, look at the bottom of the screen for that live chat area. You might have to tap on something to get it to pop up, but it should say live chat somewhere on the screen. So that's all of that. Put those questions in any of those places and I will see them and I'll be able to respond. So yeah, that's all of that part. So, okay, let's talk about kind of what we're going to be doing. Also, if there are technical difficulties, please let me know about that too. I've had situations where I've been talking into a muted mic before, or my mic got disconnected, or just Zoom decided to throw up its hands and walk away. And in any of those cases, I want to know as quickly as possible if there's a problem so we can get it resolved. So just let me know if something like that happens. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to do in this class. So this is a 3-part WordPress course. We're going to start with, or we're going to start today with creating a website and basically just setting up some of the basics and talking about some of the little bits that that are of essential basic setup information. Oh, someone said in the chat they'd like to know more about the Excel courses after this, and what they see online is May. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I'm a little behind on posting those event pages, but the Excel is going to be, I want to say it's going to be Mondays in August. Let me double check that. I'll just go ahead and tell you so that that's off our plate. See, this is what I'm saying. Ask questions when you have them. Okay, yeah. So they're going to be Mondays 10 to 11:30, and that'll be Monday the 2nd, the 9th, the 16th, and the 23rd. I do live stream pretty much all these classes as well. So if like there's something that prevents you from catching a particular one, you can catch up on it afterwards too. So if you're like, oh, the 16th is not so good, don't worry about that. We'll if you register, I can also make sure that you can get the link there. So yeah, I'll try to have that posted sometime today so that hopefully folks can sign up if they're interested. Okay. Cool. Oh yeah. Okay. So what we were saying a moment ago, we're going to be working on WordPress, and basically so we're going to start with creating sort of a bare bones basic website, and then next week we're going to talk about posting content, and then or not next week, tomorrow we're going to talk about posting content, and then after that on Friday we're going to be doing some other tweaks, changing the style of things a little bit, and just kind of rounding out everything. So I think it's going to be really good. This is a class that a lot of folks like, and so hopefully y'all will too. Okay, let's go ahead and fire up the screen sharing. So I'm going to click on the button over here and got it. Okay, cool. Okay, excellent. So here we are in the web browser, and what we're going to do is so let's actually do a little bit of background here. So y'all can go ahead if you want to get a little head start on things. You can head to WordPress.com up here like I am now, and let's talk a little bit about what WordPress is, and well, kind of what it isn't too, and why it and things like it are useful. So WordPress is what we call a content management system. A content management system, usually, a lot of times you'll see it abbreviated as CMS, as is fitting. A content management system basically is designed to streamline maintaining a website. A lot of people, myself included, are not primarily web designers, but we need to work with websites and maintain content on websites. And you know, if you're someone who has a small business or you're a freelancer or something like that, obviously it's super duper important to have a website, because that's how you sort of establish your presence online. And, you know, if you are, you know, and everybody needs a presence online. I mean, I don't have a personal website right now, but obviously I work here at the library and we super duper need a website, and we do a lot of stuff with it. And so but like I said, a lot of us that need a website aren't necessarily web designers. You know, I would count myself in that category. I've built websites before, but I'm not necessarily like an expert, and it's certainly not the job that I'm being paid for. The job that I'm paid for is to teach technology classes and to help facilitate online events of various sorts. So I don't want to spend all my time fiddling around with a bunch of HTML and CSS code, because that's not really what I care about. It's not my it's not my primary skill set. And honestly, it gets a little frustrating after a while. So what a content management system does is allows you to automate a lot of that stuff that you would have had to do manually. Back in the day when I first started using the internet in kind of like the mid 90s, when a lot of people got online, you could tell if you went to like a big website that was owned by a large company, you could tell what web pages on their site they cared about and which ones they didn't. The ones that they cared about had really nice, they had a really nice polished, new look to them. And everything worked on them. All the images were there and stuff like that. The pages on their website that they didn't care about so much, like for older products or for, just stuff they weren't really thinking about that wasn't top of mind anymore. A lot of those websites, or, a lot of those pages would look sort of broken. They would have like missing images or an old menu structure or broken links that went to some page on the site that no longer existed, or any number of things like that. And the reason for that is if you needed to update your website, you had to go in and change every page manually. For example, if you change the menu structure, like, on your pages, if you wanted to change it on all your pages, you'd have to go through on each and every page. At the bare minimum, you'd have to copy and paste the same exact text into each and every page on the back end in order for it to look the same on every page. And depending on depending on how your website was set up, you might have to do more than that. And so that was a real hassle. And so a lot of companies just had to choose, like, okay, we have so many people and they have so many hours in their day. Do we update every single page on our website, or do we pick like the high priority ones, update those, and just let the rest kind of languish? And so usually they did the latter, which was fine in most cases, but it looked a little off, and it kind of spoke to, it kind of just, it wasn't a great experience for the visitor to the website. And certainly if it was a smaller organization, it might reflect poorly on, on their sort of professionalism. So that's why content management systems are really useful. So let's talk just briefly too about WordPress.com, which we're going to be using for the most part during class, and just WordPress itself. Okay, so WordPress itself, the actual software, actually lives on WordPress.org. Wow. Okay, something went wrong there. Weird. All right. This is not boding well. Oh, geez. Skip to content. It's not looking so good, y'all. All right, let me try this a different way. Yeah. Okay. Something's going wrong with that website. That's a little ominous. Hopefully, hopefully that's not a sign of things to come. Okay, so there's a little banner here though that says meet WordPress. WordPress is open source software you can use to create a beautiful, excuse me, it's right after lunch, y'all, a beautiful website, blog, or app. So what WordPress, so WordPress itself, as it says, is software. It's not even like a service. It's really just software. Yeah, someone's making a suggestion there. Let me see. Yeah, it's worth a shot. Yeah, weird. Well, if it keeps going, yeah, might try that. Thanks for the suggestion, Robert. We'll get a little more detailed, I guess, if WordPress.com stops working, then we'll have a real problem. So WordPress.org is where the WordPress software lives. And the software itself, you can actually install pretty much anywhere. If you have a computer that's connected to the internet, technically you can run WordPress on it. Now, I don't recommend running your website that way. That's a very, that would be a very challenging way to run your website, I would say. But you can, but technically you can do it. More often, folks might install the software on some sort of web server or in some sort of web hosting environment, or they might have a web hosting plan that includes WordPress or something similar. But WordPress itself is just the software, and it actually is free. And so you don't have to spend money to get the full functionality out of WordPress. Well, at least you don't have to spend money on WordPress. And so when you download WordPress this way and install it somewhere yourself, or when you go to a web hosting company that has WordPress installations available to you, then you're going to get kind of the basic sort of bare bones version of WordPress, which is fine. It works well, and you can add a bunch of stuff on top of it if you want to. But what we want to do for this class is not necessarily spend time on more of the technical side of that. A lot of times folks can, a lot of times, a lot of times we can get sort of bogged down in all of these setup things. And, and what I want to do for this class is focus on how to use the WordPress software itself. So for that reason, rather than downloading the software from WordPress.org, we're going to use WordPress.com instead. WordPress.com is a hosting service. It's run by the same people who manage the WordPress open source software project, a company called Automatic with 2 T's at the end, because the man who started it, his name is Matt. But WordPress.com, rather than allowing you to install WordPress or sort of giving you a vanilla basic version of WordPress, WordPress.com is actually a web hosting service that runs on WordPress. And so what it allows you to do is create a website, skip a lot of the setup stuff, and just jump into using a version of WordPress. The version of WordPress that we're going to be using here on WordPress.com is slightly different from the version that's used other places. So if you decide to host a website elsewhere, it's totally understandable. And this class is still going to be useful to you because you're going to have a foundation in how to use WordPress in general. You might find that things are in a slightly different place or stuff like that, but it's not going to be incredibly different. And so that's why we're using WordPress.com, is so that we can focus on how do I use WordPress rather than how do I use a specific like hosting service or things like that. Alternate content, management systems that you might find around that are sort of competitors with the sort of plain version of WordPress that you get at WordPress.org are things like Drupal and Joomla, which are other sort of open source content management system projects. For WordPress.com, something that's more of a competitor to that is going to be something like Squarespace or Wix or places like that, because those places have their own software that's sort of proprietary, that you use to build a website. And, and again, their goal is to make it sort of streamlined. So WordPress.com is kind of a middle ground between using something like Joomla to host your, to manage your website, and using one of those sort of more streamlined services like Squarespace, because WordPress.com, since it runs on WordPress, you can make a ton of different changes and try different things out. And there's a ton of support because, as it says here, 42% of the web is built on WordPress. No idea how they calculate that, but I mean, there are a lot of WordPress websites out there. Couch.org is actually a WordPress website as well. So, yeah, it's definitely very popular. Okay, let's see. So let's go ahead and dive in and start making this. Now, we're gonna, each of us, as we're going through the class, we're gonna create a website. You can do this one of two ways. Option number one, and probably the one I recommend, is try to make your real website, or at least something close to it. If you're going to be using some other hosting service or something like that, then it might not be practical to fully make your website and spend a ton of time on that. But at the same time, you can actually get a jump on it. I'll show you how to where the import and export settings are, so you can actually bring your content over to that other hosting provider, and so it won't completely be sort of lost. The other option, if you already have a WordPress website set up, you may be doing this more for practice, and that's totally fine too. In that case, just create something fun that's good for you to play around with and kind of understand, to understand more clearly how WordPress works and how you might achieve this thing or that thing while using it. So either way is perfectly fine. But feel free to make your real website if you want to, or feel free to make a practice website if you just want a sandbox to play in, or you already have a website set up and you're just trying to learn more about WordPress. I would not recommend using a WordPress website that you already have set up, or that you've set up on another, and certainly a WordPress site that you've set up on another hosting provider. It's going to be very challenging to follow along. So I would not recommend doing that. Okay, so let's do this thing. Let's make a website. So what you'll want to do here on the WordPress.com site, make sure that it's WordPress.com and not .org, is click Get Started. And then it's going to prompt you to create an account. So you'll want your email address. You'll want to do a username. Now, the username is going to be something that's visible to visitors to your website. So I recommend not making it something inscrutable or embarrassing. Make it something that, you know, someone might be able to read and parse in their brain. And, you know, obviously don't use anything where you would be embarrassed for someone to connect that username to you, the real life person. Down here where it says choose a password, choose a password. You do want to make it something fairly long. 12 to 16 characters is a good length for a password. You do want to use a mixture of letters, numbers, symbols, and both uppercase and lowercase letters, I should say. You do want to make sure that it's a password that you don't use anywhere else, because guess what? Somebody gets a hold of the password for your, I don't know, Facebook account or whatever, and it's the same account and it's the same password that you use here on WordPress.com. They now have access to the back end of your website as well. So definitely make sure you've got that. Oh, and make sure you know what it is. You might have to record it somewhere in order to remember it, but obviously good to keep up with that. When you click create your account, it should send you a verification email. I already have a WordPress.com account. I've created a lot of websites over the last few years teaching this class. So I'm not going to create a new account. I'm just going to sign in. But make sure, so when you click create your account, make sure that you go to your email and click that or find the message from WordPress.com and click the link or the button in there to verify. So I'm going to sign into mine. Oh yeah. If you do have a WordPress.com account, click on this login. All right, so so here we go. This this process changes every time. So we'll see how it works this time. It says choose a domain, enter your site's name or some descriptive keywords to get started. So when we say a domain, let's go ahead and clarify the jargon here. What we're talking about when we say a domain is, well, an example of a domain would be WordPress.com up here. A domain name is going to be something something dot something. So the domain for the library's website is cows.org. The domain for Netflix is netflix.com. The domain for oh, I don't know. I don't have any good examples off the top of my head. But you get the idea. There's everything from .com, .org, .edu for schools, a bunch of things, all the way to .pizza, .limo, rocks or whatever. There's tons of stuff. So that's what we call a domain. something.com or something.org or something.pizza. All the rest of the stuff, in fact, you can look at this address here up at the top of my screen. I've got https://wordpress.com. That's in black, whereas the rest of it is gray. that tells me what the domain name is. And by the way, that's really useful for security purposes. If you are about to log into a website, you might glance up at the top and just make sure that it's still the domain that you intended to log into. So, if you think you're about to log into Facebook, but you look at the top and it just says like, fb.signin.com or something like that, then somebody's trying to get your information. So be careful there. But it's lit up it's darkened like this so that it's easy to tell what domain you're actually visiting. Okay, so I have wordpress.com/start/domains !ref logged out homepage LP. Okay, so I'm going to start typing something in here. So if you're making a website for your business, you might type your business's name in here, or if it's a blog, you may have a title for the blog that you'd like to use or something like that, or you may just use your name. Oh, excuse me. Let's see how this goes. What if I just type my name in there like this? Nathan-smiths.com. Okay, so here's what I want to draw your attention to. When I start typing something in here, I've got a few things up here, and there's select, big, bright buttons, and so forth. And then down here, just underneath these two big boxes is this one that's Nathan Smith, all those numbers, .wordpress.com. It says free over here, and there's a select button. What we want to do is, for now at least, and for me personally during this demo, what I'm going to do is try to type something up here where you'll notice it added a bunch of numbers to the address. And that's because there's already a nathansmith.wordpress.com. They're willing to give me this address completely free, but it's a bad address and no one could possibly remember that. So I'm going to try, let's see. Okay, cool. There we go. Okay, so I called this one Cal's DL JUL for July, of course, 21 for 2021. In fact, let's go ahead and just make this around July. And the capitalization does not matter, but I'm just putting it like this so that you can see exactly what I'm doing there. And when I go down here, sure enough, Cal's DL July 21.wordpress.com, DL standing for digital literacy. So they haven't added any long string of numbers to my address here. That looks perfectly fine. So what I'm going to do is click select. For each of these up at the top and down here at the bottom, what they're telling us, it says free for the first year. What they're telling us is with a free plan, or with a paid plan, excuse me, then we will get a free domain name at least for the first year. After that, we might have to pay for it, but we would get that at least for the first year if we have a paid plan with WordPress.com. Because I'm just using this for the demo, I'm doing the free version. You can always upgrade to a paid plan later if you decide you want to use WordPress.com for your website. But I'm going to stick with the free version, and I'm not going to be going into any of the details about functionality that's included with the paid version. I'm going to assume that you'll be using the free version for this course over the next 3 days here. So what's the difference between these and this and some of these others? So calsdljuly21.com is actually available, and I could click select here. Technically, it'd be free for the first year. But this one that's free for life is calsdl21.wordpress.com. So if you'll notice that .wordpress.com, that's the domain. This CalsDL July 21 is what's known as a subdomain. A subdomain is something something dot something something dot something. So in this case, CalsDL July 21.wordpress.com. So you can think of a domain as being kind of like a house. So if you go to, if you knew my address, then you could come to my house, although please don't unless I have invited you. But if you knew my address, you come to my house, and my family is the only family that lives there. And it's all one unit. If you, once you're inside the door, then you can go to basically any of the places inside my house, any of the rooms, and they're all part of the same thing. So a domain is like that. If you have a website that's just the regular old domain, like cals.org, for example, then it's basically then you kind of, that's kind of the main, it's all sort of together in one thing. A subdomain, at least in the way that WordPress is doing it here, is kind of like an apartment building. If you go to WordPress.com, you're going to sort of the main website, which we've already seen, and there's some basic content, or there's some, like, a lot of content actually on WordPress.com itself. But then if you go to something.wordpress.com, they've got those subdomains available for people when they start a new website, a new, like, free website. So a subdomain is, so that's what they're giving us here, is a subdomain of WordPress.com. We're kind of renting a unit in the WordPress.com domain that they already own. So I'm going to click select here and choose that. Y'all can continue to play around with this. Like I said, you can type in the name of your business. You can type in your name if it's a personal website for you, whatever the case may be. One of the things about this, we are creating a domain, we're creating a domain, or registering, in this case, a subdomain, which is kind of which is kind of the address of the, of your website. But we're not necessarily naming your website. That's going to come later. So, even if you want your, even if you're creating a blog and you want your blog to be called, like, JoJo's Garden, maybe jojosgarden.wordpress.com is available. Maybe it's not. But and maybe eventually you'll have your own full domain, like jojosgarden.flower or whatever. I don't know if .flower is one, but in any case, you've got, you can base the address of your site on its name, but it might not necessarily be the full title. If you had if you had a tea shop called, like, All the Tea You Can Drink, that's not necessarily going to be the name of, that's not going to necessarily be the address of your website, because you might not want everyone to type all that out. But that would certainly be the name of it. Just like here at the library, this is the main library. But if you were to say, if you were to tell someone, I'll meet you at 100 South Rock Street, they probably wouldn't know what you were talking about. Whereas if you say, I'll meet you at the main library, if they live around here, and they're likely to know where that is. So that's the difference between the name and the address there. I'll click select. We'll move on. Okay, choose a plan. Here it is. So WordPress.com obviously is a service that is free, but surprise, surprise, they do want to be paid if you're willing to pay them. So they have all the features here. I'm not going to really get into it so much. but because this is not a sales pitch for WordPress.com, but y'all can check these out if you're interested. They have annual or monthly, and they have a bunch of different additional sort of features that you can that you can access if you have a paid plan. So so yeah, that's how that works. What we're gonna do, if you're doing the same thing as me, I mean, if you already know you want a paid plan, feel free to spring for it. But I'm gonna assume that you're not going to do that. Just as I am not, I'm gonna click start with a free site up here at the top. Like I said, you can always upgrade to one of the paid plans if you decide you want to do that. Okay, cool. So here I am. You might at this point have gotten prompted to, I'm not sure where in the flow it's going to fall. So either at this point or previously, you might have been prompted to verify your email address. Make sure over here that there is a check mark that next to confirm your email address. If there is, great. If there's not, I'm going to mute the mic, have some water, and give you like 3 minutes to do that. So, yeah, we'll do that. And by the way, if you have any questions about anything up to this point, feel free to drop those in the chat or the comments during this time as well, because I certainly want to make sure that folks are keeping up. So yeah, drop those questions in the chat if you have them. And if you need to verify your email address, keep working on that, and then we'll pick it back up in just a sec. All right. Let's go ahead and jump back in. So, hopefully everybody's in and verified, and it is showing us, or it's giving us kind of some this my home area here, which is sort of designed to be sort of built in, excuse me, kind of like an orientation. But you're with me, so I'm actually going to show you a slightly different way to do, excuse me, what we want to do here in terms of basic setup. I'm going to go down here where it's the settings, and move my mouse over that. And I'm going to click on general right here. Okay, goodbye. Thank you. Okay, cool. So what we've got here is some sort of basic settings to work with on our site. First things first, we've got our site title. Now we're going to ignore the site icon for now. We are going to deal with that a little later on. But for now, we're going to ignore it. Under where it's a site title, right now it just says site title in the blank too. So you'll want to get rid of that and put in what you actually want to name your site. So again, if you're doing it for an organization, you probably want to just type the name of the organization, that business, or that, or that group or whatever. If it's for yourself, you could just name the site your name, or you could call it something a little jazzier, whatever you want to go with, basically. So I'll just call mine, demo WP site, July 2021, because, that's really an exciting name. Okay. So down below, you have the site tagline. Now, the site tagline is kind of it says, in a few words, explain what this site is about. When they say in a few words, they're not kidding. If you have a whole paragraph of stuff in here, it's not gonna go so well. So think about a phrase or a sentence or two sentences if they're short and you're ambitious. But definitely, don't get too deep into writing something here. On some layouts, this site tagline is not actually going to show up. So don't stress yourself out about it. If you don't know what to write off the top of your head, then you can always come back to this later. And again, you just go to settings and general down here, and that's going to get us there. So I'm going to put something like teaching tech to Central Arkansas. If you're doing like a personal blog, you can maybe put a quote that inspires you or amuses you or something. You could put, if it's an organization, if you have a slogan, that's the thing to put there. Or if you have a motto, put that there, that sort of thing. Okay, cool. So type in whatever it is. Down here under site address, so this is where you can change the address of your site. Obviously, we just set that, so we're not going to dig too deep into that. But you do have the option to, as it says, buy a custom domain. So you can pay WordPress.com just for the domain name itself without adding any additional features. So feel free to do that if that works best for you. You can, as it says, map a domain you already own. So if you bought a domain name elsewhere and you want your site to be hosted on WordPress.com, then you can click on that link right there where it says map a domain you already own, and you'll be able to set up that domain to point to your WordPress.com site. And it also gives you the option to redirect the site, as it says there, which means that if someone visits the site, they'll be sent somewhere else, which, if you decide to switch hosting providers from WordPress.com, or, you decide, like, you change the name of your company and so your website address changes or whatever, then that's a good way to go there. Okay, down here, language, English. So as it says, this is the site's primary language. So all the stuff that you see here on the back end, if you change this setting, that's not going to change. This is telling things like search engines what language your website is written in. So if someone who speaks English would come to your website and be able to understand what it's telling them, then English is the correct setting here. Otherwise, if you're going to write your content in a different language, even if the back end is in English, then you want to change that. And you can change the reverse over here so that the back end is written in a different language, but your content could be in English. And then site time zone. If you are in Central Arkansas, like I am, or anywhere in Arkansas or a lot of different places, make sure that it says Chicago here. Basically, anywhere that it's 1:50 p.m. right now, and you use your state participates in daylight savings time. So yeah, they guessed it. Thankfully, they're good. But if your website is for some other place, or if it's or if you're located somewhere else, select the appropriate time zone in that drop-down box. Finally, down here, you have launch site. So it says your site hasn't been launched yet. It's hidden from visitors behind a coming soon notice until it is launched. So if someone has the address of your site right now, they're going to see they could type it in. They're going to see a coming soon in their web browser. And they're not going to be able to look at any of your content just yet. When you do launch the site, you have a few different privacy settings. I just want to briefly elaborate on those so that you know what's going on. When you click launch site, what should happen is it should make your site public, which means that anyone who has the address can visit your site and see the content that you've created. Great. That's what you want for the vast majority of websites, obviously. You can also have but there are a couple of other privacy settings that you could choose if you want. If you set your website to, what is it? I forget what they call it. But there's like an unlisted or something like that. That's basically where if someone has the address of your website, they can type it in and they can go to your website and see the content that you've got there. But if they don't have the address of your website is configured to tell search, and WordPress.com are configured to tell search engines that your website, to pretend to search engines that your website doesn't exist. And so if it's your personal blog and someone tried to Google you, they wouldn't be able to find it. Only if you give them the address or someone else gives them the address would they be able to find your site. So you have that option. You also have the option for a completely private site. And if you use that option, what that'll mean is anyone who visits your website has to do two things. Number one, they have to get a WordPress.com account. And number two, that doesn't mean they have to create a website. They just have to have an account. And number two, they have to be specifically approved by you to have access to the site. That is prohibitive. And honestly, there are just a million better ways to do something like that for the most part. Create a private Facebook group, start a group chat. Any of those sorts of things are probably going to be fine for the most part for those types of situations. So, but you do have that option. Okay, so two additional things. There's change your site's address, the footer credit, which we'll talk about later. And then there's delete your content and delete your site permanently. If you need to delete your WordPress.com website, this is where you go to do the thing. So if you do delete your content, it says keep your site's address and current theme, but remove all post pages and media so you can start fresh. In other words, this is deleting just the stuff that you've posted in terms of, text and images and things like that. So if you start this now and then 10 years later you come along and, there's a lot of embarrassing stuff on that website, you can clear it out and you can start with a sort of a clean slate there. Then there's delete your site permanently. That's delete all your posts, pages, media, and data and give up your site's address. So this is obviously the nuclear option. If you decide, I absolutely do not want this website, this content should not be out there, you know, or you just, people keep getting mixed up and you like don't want them to come visit this anymore, that sort of thing, then you have this delete your site permanently option. What that's going to do is, as it says, delete all the stuff from your website, and it's going to give up your site's address. So the whatever address you have, particularly if it's one of these WordPress subdomains, neither you nor anyone else will ever be able to use that again. So if I use this option on this, then calsdljuly21.wordpress.com would no longer be available to anyone. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Obviously, that's super permanent. So just know that that's a thing. Okay, so up at the top, I'm going to click Save Settings to make sure that I save my settings, because otherwise this stuff will not take. Let's go ahead and look at the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and move my mouse over here where it says site title. I'm going to move my mouse over that, click on the little house here. And now I can see how my website is set up. So I have my title up here. I do have my tagline down here. I've got home and blog. It says, welcome to your new site, blah, blah, blah. There's a link to tutorials. There's learn more. Then there's a section called latest from the blog, and it says, and it has an example blog post that we could read if we wanted to. There's a little subscribe thing down here at the bottom. That's kind of interesting. And then down here, it says demo WP site, July 2021. Create a free website or blog at WordPress.com. That's the footer credit that we were talking about. Let's talk about how to tweak that a little bit later on. So this is what it looks like. I mean, obviously, it's full of just basic placeholder content, but it looks pretty nice already without me having to do much at all. Your website might look different. If it does, then don't worry, because one of the cool things about WordPress is the ability to use themes. Now, basically, all content management systems support something like this. WordPress. But WordPress has kind of a leg up on them because it's the most popular one. There are a lot of different themes out there that you can use. And so let's take a moment and look at some of those themes and talk about that a little bit. So what I'm going to do is come up here and move my mouse over Appearance, and I'm going to click on Themes. Okay, great. All right, so we've got this, we have this kind of list of themes here. The Heaver is the current theme on my website here. I have the option to customize, which we'll talk about on Friday, and this info button right here. If I scroll down, I can see a lot more themes, and just take a look at the differences here. So, so right now I'm using this one, but let's say, for instance, I choose this Maywood here. Let me move my mouse. Well, okay. First, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to filter it a little bit. I'm going to click free. So that way we can make sure that all of these are free. If I select premium instead, you'll notice that I get that there are various themes that you can purchase for pretty widely varying sums of money, up to, looks like about $125. So it all depends on what functionality you want, what look you want your website to have, and so forth. But there are a lot of nice free themes out there. And of course, if you find that you do need some specific functionality, you can always purchase a paid theme later. The key thing about this, though, that I want to mention is, like, when you change themes on your WordPress site, it doesn't really change the website itself, it just changes the look of it. Let's check this out. Okay, the Maywood one is free. I'm going to click on that. Pops up a little button that says info, modern, clean, sophisticated, make your online presence as striking and stylish as your business with Maywood. So this, it says by automatic. So this is also, this theme is also made by the developers of WordPress. But there are, there are other companies and designers that make these types of themes as well. Lots of them out there. And so this gives me a basic view of how this would affect the look of my website. And it gives me a little description of like what the different features are and stuff. You can do things like, so this is kind of an interesting one. It's got the, oh, okay, good question from someone. Can a theme be applied to a single page in a website? No. The themes apply to the website as a whole. And they change a bunch of things about the look of a site. Now you can make specific changes to certain pages that kind of like break the theme or are outside of the theme, particularly with kind of other installations of WordPress that aren't WordPress.com, or with paid WordPress.com plans. You can really go wild with kind of tweaking different things about it. But the idea with the theme is it kind of goes back to what I was mentioning before about being able to tell, on a big website, which pages they cared about and which ones they didn't. The reason I could tell was the pages they didn't care about looked different from the pages they cared about. The themes are designed to give your website a cohesive feel, so that it all feels like part of the same place rather than something different. Now you can, depending on the setup that you're looking for, you can you can have a you can actually have multiple WordPress websites that are connected together in what's called a multi-site installation or multi-site network. And you could use a separate theme for two different sites that are still connected to a certain extent. But yeah, no, there's only one theme that's active on a site at a given time. But you can customize stuff based on that theme on specific pages. And we'll talk about some of that as we move forward. That is a great question, though. Thank you so much. Keep those questions coming whenever you have them, please, folks. So let's see. Okay, so they've got a bunch of different things here. There's like they have the option to build like a menu page in this particular theme, and there's a bunch of, you can do like, you can do this sort of thing where you, it looks like at least, yeah, okay, where you create like, where you have like this sort of infinite scroll type setup where you've got the content of your homepage up here. And then when you scroll down a little further, there's like more stuff that technically lives on different pages of your website, but it kind of can all load at one time. And so your audience can keep scrolling. So that's pretty cool. So there's a bunch of, it tells you all the different features. And if you if you need to get real fancy, like you've got some specs here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to apply this theme to my site. Excuse me. Actually, let me open my site in a separate tab here, just really quick. Okay. So this is what it looks like right now. If I click activate this design free. So we've got, so we do have the option here. It says switch theme, preserving my homepage content, or replace my homepage content with the Maywood homepage. So if I haven't really done much customization, in this case, we could actually just put the placeholder content there so that I can tweak some of that more directly. But assuming that I keep this little bubble here, switch theme, preserving my homepage content rather than select this one. When I click activate, now when I go back, if I reload this, it looks different. So I've got, rather than the title up here, and the navigation up here, I've got those at the top. I've got the same cover image and stuff here, but in the same text, but it's a different font, a different size and style. This doesn't actually look dramatically different from what I had before. I'm going to click just outside of this little box here. Go back. Let's try something that's pretty different. Rivington. Activate this design. Okay, now, yeah, so see, we've got a different color scheme, again, different fonts and stuff, but all my content, is the same. Welcome to your new site. For more information about customizing your site, check out learn.wordpress.com and more. All of that's the same, but my website looks significantly different. So that's what's nice about these themes is you can try a bunch of them and you don't ever have to worry about losing your stuff. Like your content is all right there. All the text that you've posted, all your blog posts, all your images that you've uploaded, all of that stuff stays, but it's just rearranged by the theme. And your theme also, like, depending on your theme, it also allows for some types of customization or layout options that you don't necessarily get with other themes. So absolutely everything, maybe some of those weird little corner things won't translate, but the majority of your site is basically going to be all there when you have the, when you set up a new theme. All of your blog posts, all of your pages, all the text and images that are on those, and all of your navigation options and stuff like that. Pretty much all that stuff is completely preserved when you switch from theme to theme. It's only like the kind of peripheral stuff that might change or that might get rearranged when you switch themes. So that's, well, those are themes. So one thing that I definitely want to encourage you to do between classes is to kind of look around, see if there's a nice theme that you like, and apply it, play around with it. We're going to do a lot more of that in or tomorrow and Friday, but definitely, just fiddle with that a little bit. You're still at the beginning, so certainly don't like now is a really good time to experiment. And I always tell folks in classes, the best way to learn about technology is to play around with it, because you can you can sit in classes all day, and obviously I do this for a living. I believe in technology classes. I think they're really useful. But at the same time, you can't learn everything that you need to know about technology from a technology class, because a class is designed to fulfill a lot of different people's various needs. And you know exactly what you need. And so playing around with it, experimenting, makes a big difference in terms of how comfortable you feel with it and just how much you can do with it. Okay, so we've talked about that a little bit. Let's go ahead and poke around on the site a little bit more. But by the way, one thing that I'll point out up here at the top, where I have the name of the website and the address, and I click on this little house, When I do that, it's going to give me this right here. Like it's going to show me the website here in this right-hand area. But over on the left, I've still got my menu here. And so obviously my audience, when they come visit my site, they're not going to see that. They're also not going to see this up at the top, which we'll talk about in a sec. The best way to see your website sort of full screen, the way that your visitors would actually see it, is by just going directly to the address of the site. So I went to calsdl21.wordpress.com, and sure enough, there it is. And I can scroll around on it and get to where I want to go. Let's click around a little bit. There's not a whole lot here just yet, but we're going to build some stuff tomorrow, so it won't be quite such a ghost town in the future. One other thing that you will be seeing on your website that other people won't be seeing is some of this stuff here. So up here at the top, it says your site hasn't been launched yet. Only you can see it until it's launched. Excuse me. So I could, so I have launch site and dismiss up here. I'll just dismiss it for now. I've got my WordPress.com controls up here at the top. I have these buttons down here, the customize and the edit button. And then I actually have edit in a couple of other places around here. And obviously your visitors aren't going to see any of that. So I basically only have two main pages here. There's the home page, and then there's blog. If I click on blog, it's going to take me here. I've still got this cover image up at the top. And then basically I have a list of posts. There's only one post on my site right now. It says introduce yourself, example post. I can click continue reading, or I can click this up here, and it'll take me in to the blog post, so I can read it, see what's going on there, and then I have my comments down here and stuff. So so that's all fine. That's all there is to it right now. But let's talk about a distinction. I'm going to talk about this again next week in more detail, or tomorrow in more detail. But let's talk right now. I'll just mention this about a distinction that's definitely super important for our purposes in using WordPress, and that is the difference between a post and a page. So WordPress started out as blogging software. Now you don't have to use the blog that's built into WordPress if you don't want to. You can ignore it, you can hide it away. That's perfectly fine. But WordPress originally started out as blogging software. So every WordPress site, when you start it, does at least contain a blog and has the ability for you to host a blog on it. So, so that's a key thing to remember, because WordPress kind of spotlights the blog in a way. It definitely makes it sort of puts it front and center. And so you can create sites that don't have, where you don't really use a blog, or you can have the blog kind of be a side thing. That you don't necessarily emphasize, but that information's built into it. Question here from in the chat. Can we watch the session again at a later time? Yes. If you want to review, that is great. The easiest way to do it is going to be to go to the CALS YouTube channel. So let me drop a link there. That is the easiest way to get there is cals.link/YouTube. And, it won't hurt my feelings one bit if you subscribe to the channel. but that will that'll take you there. And I'm live streaming to the YouTube channel right now, and you should be able to find it there later on if you want to rewatch. Yeah, that's a thank you for asking about that. There's tons of other stuff there too, so definitely check it out. So let's see. So let's talk about blog versus or post versus page. So when I move my mouse over posts here, I have all posts, add new categories and tags, which we'll talk about tomorrow. I also have this this pages area here, all pages and add new. So pages are kind of this setup here. So this is the home page, and it's just kind of a basic. It's just a basic page with essentially kind of normal information, nothing too too spectacular like or interactive here. And your homepage is probably not going to change that much, right? I mean, you might highlight new things that are happening from time to time. You might change the images out to get a fresh look in there, and so on and so forth. Generally speaking, if you think about like the website of your favorite coffee shop, they're not changing the front page of the website all the time, because at the end of the day, they still serve coffee, and you know, they're still started in 1998, and so on and so forth. So so basically, it's going to be mostly the same. The with the blog, that's going to contain information that's a little more like, well, a lot of times your blog is going to have things like, say, for instance, if it's a personal blog, you might post a review of a movie you just saw, or you might post your thoughts about, whatever the geopolitical situation is of currently, or, any of those types of things. You might post a review of a book you just read, even though even though it's a book that's a few decades old, any of that stuff. But what it's going to be is, it's going to be kind of a moment in time. You're not writing your blog to, you're not necessarily writing your blog to serve as a timeless statement about whatever situation people might encounter in 20 or 30 years. You're writing kind of your thoughts now, or what's going on now. Or if you're running your site for a business, like maybe you're posting like, oh, we've got this great upcoming sale. Or if you're working for, if you're running the website of a nonprofit, like, we've got this fundraiser that's happening next month, or whatever. And so that's the kind of stuff that's going to be on the blog. So I don't think I came up with this, but credit to whoever it was that did come up with this. Your website is going to contain, the pages on your website, or static pages, they're sometimes called, are going to contain information that's relatively timeless. So things that you might update maybe every few months, or once a year, or something like that. Your blog posts are going to contain information that's relatively timely. So, the movie that you just saw, or the sales that are coming up in a couple of weeks, or things like that. So if you're trying to think to yourself, okay, should this be a page or should it be a blog post? Think, is it timeless or is it timely? And that will help you figure out which one is which. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and we've got wow, we're doing pretty well on time. I'm pleased. So let's go ahead and kind of wrap things up for today. Again, just a reminder, of course, and everyone who's registered for on Zoom is going to get a reminder and stuff. So tomorrow it's same time, same place. You'll have a new link in your email that to remind you to come. Anybody who's watching on stream, feel free to hit up that Zoom link at the bottom and join us in Zoom for the next class. You're welcome to just watch on the stream, but it's also nice to have you'll get those reminders and things like that if you're registered in Zoom. If you know someone else who you think this might benefit, let them know that this is happening and they can still sign up. They can watch the recorded version on YouTube and get all caught up before tomorrow. Okay, so we do have here at the end, kind of the last big thing that I want to tackle before we give a few minutes for additional questions is the homework. Now, I want to say up front, if you're like, oh no, I have no time for that, I didn't know there was going to be homework, don't sweat it. It's number one, it's pretty easy, and number two, even if you don't have time, I've still got you. So don't worry about it. It's gonna be okay. So here's what we want to do. Basically, there are a couple of different things to whoops, sorry about that. There are a couple of different things to tackle in terms of that. The biggest thing that we want to do is I want us to have some images to play around with for tomorrow's session. And of course, when you create a website, generally speaking, a website is going to be a pretty public place. There are definitely I've definitely heard folks talking about when talking about online safety, saying like, assume if you post it on the internet that it could become public. That seems a little extreme, but at the same time, it's there's some truth to that as well. But the main thing as far as but the main thing that I want to, but the main reason I bring that up is that particularly when your site goes live, you want to make sure that any images that you use on your site are images that you actually have permission to use, because if you use someone's images without permission, at the very least, that's rude. At most, there could be actual legal repercussions for that. So you definitely want to make sure that images that you use on your website are things that you have the rights to use. So how can you do that? Well, one option is you can use images that you created. If you're good at art, or if you're a photographer or something like that, you can use your own work. Option number two, you could use somebody else's work who's given you permission. So if you know someone who's a good artist or a photographer or something like that, you can use their images if they've said, yeah, go for it, and they're okay with it. Or, if you've paid commission to them or something like that. But option number three is probably the option that most folks are going to use, and it's the option that I use most of the time, which is to check around on some royalty-free and royalty-free stock photo sites. So I'll show you three that I typically go to in the order that I usually visit them. So the first one is unsplash.com. And this has a slightly smaller collection than the other two sites that I'm about to show you. But to be honest, the quality of the images that are on this site tend to be higher on average than the other two. So this is Unsplash. You can search for the kinds of, the kind of image that you're looking for. Here, you can do, there's all sorts of stuff on here. And like I said, most of it is really high quality. So this is the first place that I usually look. And you've got some categories up here of featured collections and so forth. And any image that you find on this website is not only free to download, it's free to use. And you don't even have to, although it's nice, you don't even have to attribute the artist and say like, oh, this photo was taken by so-and-so or whatever. It's cool if you do that. That helps the artist a little bit. But on these websites, you don't have to. And sometimes you don't really have, a place for that information. So, so that's why this is really handy. So that's the first one, Unsplash. The second one is Pexels.com. And it's a similar layout. They do also have some stock videos on this site, which is interesting. And so if you click videos here, you can find different things. Here's a nice little wind turbine and so forth. So, so that's Pexels.com. And then the last place that I check is Pixabay.com. And this is, I would say, I mean, this site tends to have a lot more things like sort of clip art like that, which are not necessarily the style at the moment, to be honest. And so, so you may or may not, you may run across some things like that that are kind of late 90s Microsoft Word vibe. And but they also have a lot of different things here. They also have some other, like some interesting stuff like vector art, which I'm not going to go into my whole spiel explaining what vector art is, but it's pretty darn useful sometimes. Oh, they added music. That's interesting. So, so yeah, all of the stuff that you find on any of these websites, as it says, is free and royalty free. So the free part means you can access it for free. You can download it. You can upload it to your website. The royalty free part means that you don't have to pay any money to use it wherever you want to. And on these sites, you also don't have to attribute the artist. In other words, say this is a picture from so-and-so or courtesy of, whoever the case may be, and that sort of thing. So, it's nice to do that, but if you're not able to do that, then it's not gonna hurt you. So this is a good place to find that stuff. So what's the homework? Try to find 3 or 4 nice images from one of these services or from your own collection of some sort, and download them on your computer and get them ready for tomorrow's session. And that's the main thing. There's other stuff that will. Oh, right. The only other thing is, if you have some sort of, you don't have to have anything like this, but if you have some sort of like a writing sample or something like that that you might post, or some content that you've written for your website already, then maybe have that handy as well. And that way you can copy and paste that tomorrow when we talk about posting content on the site. And that's pretty much it. What questions do y'all have for me before we wrap it up for today? All right. Darcy, thank you for being here. Thanks everybody for coming. I don't see any other questions. If you're like furiously typing a question, then keep going. If you think of a question later, feel free to shoot me an email. The best email address to use for that is digital@cals.org. So feel free to shoot me a message there, and I hopefully will be able to tackle that for you. And thank y'all so much for joining me today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and I will see everybody tomorrow.